polling centers gazetted?
They are supposed to be.
They are supposed to be gazetted.
They are supposed to be by law.
All right. So the question again becomes, a national tallying center, which is very crucial, and we give it a much higher premium. I don't want to say it than the polling station, because I think polling station is where everything is done, is made. Why wouldn't it also be gazetted? Why is it unconstitutional?
No, it should be gazetted.
It should be gazetted.
It should be gazetted. Because it relates to the presidential election.
So what is the issue here if it relates to the presidential election? So you say it's unconstitutional?
No. Well,
the argument is that the National Tallying Center is unconstitutional.
Well, you see, that I have to ask again. Okay, fine. Who then gets to define you have actually met the threshold? Because you may actually not garner the 24, the minimum counties. You may be perceived to have won. But so who does that? You have to have that national.
So is it a lacuna?
Now
Is it a lacuna we have in the law?
No. There is no lacuna. It's just interpretation that is being bandied around. And I think what Okia probably is saying, probably I have misapprehended what his point is, but let me re-emphasize. You cannot alter. You're only tallying. It's a tallying center.
Yes.
So that you tally. But you do not add a figure. Now, going by what Honorable Gakuya has said, the law is very, in my humble view, very assumptive, theoretical, reductionist. Reductionist in what sense? That it assumes that the quote-unquote the power basis of, for instance, the incumbent, let's assume someone from Kuresoi, for instance. They of Kuresoi will very unlikely, in terms of practice, and what has emerged from the previous elections, not permit or allow a quote-unquote a foreigner or the competing candidate by way of their agents to go there. So what you have there is the incumbent from Kuresoi, for instance, if he's a president, I'm just using a theoretical example. He then, by means of his agents or emissaries, and if he's able to control the IEBC, as the lamentation that I've just seen right now, then a collusion emerges between those officers at the IEBC at that level, or the so-called strongholds, so that then the competition is not able to send their agents there and therefore scrutinize. So whatever will be declared there is quote-unquote official, but it is not reflective of the actual vote. So ballot stuffing will happen in those so-called strongholds under the eye and the watch of the IEBC representative, but you as a competitor have been barred because of the political machinations. And this is what I'm saying, the dysfunctional operation of the electoral law, so that you are assumed that you have your agents at every polling station. That's the electoral statutory assumption. But in practical reality, you find the different scenario. The pendulum swings the other way, such that the so-called stronghold areas, the agents of the competition are barred, and you have ballot stuffing, and you have a declaration that is totally unreflective of the electoral voice. So that is a danger that we face as we go into the 2027 election. And you see now, right now, the problem of violence, such that if a candidate feels threatened, their own supporters feel probably they'll be accosted by or with violence, and therefore they will not be able to exercise their free will, so that the entire electoral process, seen from the conception of it to the conclusion of the declaration, becomes marred. And we would like to ensure from all these attacks, from all these vitiating factors, the electoral process, so that the sanctity thereof cannot be impeached in a court of law. But the IEBC, in my humble view, has failed in its responsibilities, not even educating the people. That look, hey, do not taint the electoral process through violence and this verbiage that you're spewing that is denigrating of your opponent. So you have to ask these candidates, have you studied, have you looked at the electoral code of conduct? Because the Electoral Code of Conduct tells you how to govern yourself from the point that you hand in your certificate to the point of the end of that election, unless you withdraw from that election. So I'm saying that we may encounter a problem where someone could be declared the winner.
Thank you.
But with fake results, quote unquote legit, quote unquote authenticated by the IEBC, but in the stronghold of the so-called incumbent, where your eyes, through the agent, your agent, were totally cut off.
But even if we have the result